Chris Wray doesn't think we're relevant. He doesn't think Congress matters. He's sitting atop the FBI. It has a budget of $11.5 billion. Just got another $500 million from our friends in the Senate, including 18 Republicans in that omnibus. And he believes that he can do anything he wants to, sort of a potentate. Well, I don't believe that's right. And I don't think he can listen. I don't think he should be collecting bulk data, or at the NSA, they ought to be collecting bulk data on Americans. I don't think their contractors ought to be running unlimited searches without authorization on those databases about Americans. I don't think people ought to be targeted for going to mouth off to their school board. And I don't think the FBI needs to decide what we say in our society.
One of the changes that you fought most intensely for throughout this process, I think it's fair to say that if you hadn't put as our flag in the ground, it wouldn't have happened, was this select committee on the weaponization of government. It's interesting because it plays into something that we've admired you on for quite some time now, which is your more circumspect approach on foreign policy and the American security state. Tell me, why did you think this committee had to exist? What events in the news, experiences you've had told you that we needed this in the new Congress?
As a member of the public, I watched as it developed, the Russiagate controversy from the January 2017 Intel Community assessment that gave credence to the Steele dossier through the briefing of the president, the BuzzFeed release, all the machinations that led thereafter to Jeff Sessions being recused on ridiculous grounds, in my view, the appointment of a special counsel, Robert Mueller, the 17 angry Democrats, everything that's happened, and some of which you didn't know at the time. Igor Danchenko, the primary subsource, while they knew he was a liar, they made him an FBI informant in March of 2017 and kept in that status till October 2020. The Alpha Bank, so all of it. It was a massive, just like President Trump said, it was a massive hoax. Watching our institutions do that, the Department of Justice and its FBI, were, I think, sort of an indelible mark for me. I observed it casually. I eventually came to learn a fair amount of detail about it and all the aftermath. But that was the first thing that sort of got me fundamentally changing my view about federal law enforcement. And then serving on the Judiciary Committee, I've had a chance to see that's sort of a specific, even as many as things as I just articulated, they're all about that Russia hoax. Mm-hmm. But then you see the stuff just exploding everywhere. You see an obvious double standard, politicized justice. People who riot, if they're Antifa, they get released from jail. If they join the riots on January 6th, thousands are prosecuted, and people who are just in the wrong place and did virtually nothing have their lives destroyed. It goes on and on. But I mean, when you get into the question, when you start seeing things, while I'm sitting in judiciary of the Attorney General writing the memo to target parents because they didn't like how parents were mouthing off to school boards, and then the Twitter files, to make it recent, the Twitter files are released, and you see, and you go dig into the bottom of that, the Foreign Influence Task Force at the FBI. Sounds like something we definitely want to have, a Foreign Influence Task Force. But when you go look at the website, Chris Wray, the director of the FBI, created this thing from whole cloth in 2017. And what is it doing? It's going to Twitter and telling them, and just because we know about Twitter because Elon Musk has disclosed it, but there's a whole Facebook and everybody else. We don't yet know what they've done there, but they're actually engaging. They got special agents in charge who are going out and engaging and telling these people, we don't think that should be out in the public discussion. What? About what? When did they imagine that their role as federal law enforcement is to regulate the American discourse? That's insane. And what I think, it's like being the frog in the pot, but they suddenly your attention has been captured. And mine, so when you go back and look at historic analogs, that's what I want to do. Go back and say, wait a minute, this has gone wrong. when have we had seen something like this? And you go back to Frank Church, liberal Democrat senator from Idaho in 1975, after Seymour Hersh had written in the New York Times about foreign covert actions that had no clear authorization, where they were committing assassination plots and FBI COINTELPRO and MK Ultra and these things, abuses that had gone on before, and you say, that was a moment when they recognized something had gone badly wrong. It was precipitated maybe by the resignation of Richard Nixon and all the things associated with that, but it was a moment when Congress recognized something's got to change. And my view is we're in worse shape now than we were then by some distance. Mm-hmm. I also have just recently discovered that in 1981, there was a Senate Select Committee on FBI undercover operations. So another point, I mean, many of these things are undercover operations or confidential investigation, but the Whitmer kidnapping plot was another. Maybe that's defensible by the FBI, but I don't know. I mean, it's just such an extravagant application of resources to suck in people who may have been malignant people, but they're people just living on the margins of life with no capacities of their own to go engage in something where they might go kidnap the Michigan governor. That whole idea only existed because the FBI plowed resources into making it possible. That is a specific type of use of an undercover operation that they recognized in 1981 was not what should happen. And liberal Republican Senator Charles Mathias of Maryland, who headed that select committee, proposed a bill in the next Congress to codify and modify the law of entrapment, coming exactly out of that sort of thing. So I'm always comforted to go back and look for an analog in the past where the United States Congress has recognized that there's a problem that needs to be tended to. Mm-hmm. And I think you need to get as informed about those prior attempts as possible. What satisfied them? Why did they not go farther than they did? And I think, and I have thought, and I've worked really hard to see to it that there's authority to dig into. There's authority to set right the relationship between the United States Congress and the bureaucracy. The United States Congress makes laws. We're all elected, 750,000 people at a pop, and we come together and make laws. We've been talking about how we make laws in the Congress and trying to fix that and make that work better. Now this is the rest of the governmental problem, which is Chris Wray doesn't think we're relevant. He doesn't think Congress matters. He's sitting atop the FBI. It has a budget of $11.5 billion. Just got another $500 million from our friends in the Senate, including 18 Republicans in that omnibus. And he believes that he can do anything he wants to, sort of a potentate. Well, I don't believe that's right. And I don't think he can listen. I don't think he should be collecting bulk data, or at the NSA, they ought to be collecting bulk data on Americans. I don't think their contractors ought to be running unlimited searches without authorization on those databases about Americans. I don't think people ought to be targeted for going to mouth off to their school board. And I don't think the FBI needs to decide what we say in our society, in our public discourse. So Jim Jordan, I have a lot of trust in Jim Jordan. Thomas Massey and I are both on that committee. Some other great members are. I intend to dig harder than I've dug on anything else in my life to see to it that we get to the bottom of some of this stuff and show it to the American people. That doesn't end the story, because you've also got to reform it in a way that actually fixes something instead of makes it worse. Mm-hmm. That tends to be a problem with Congress as well.